Today I would like to speak about the morning show, and this isn't really a review of the show or anything, it's just me talking about some of the things that happened in it compared to some of the things that happen in real life. And in this video I'm going to be speaking about sexual assault and stuff like that. So this video isn't for kids, even though I mark all my videos as not for kids, and it's also a bit of a trigger warning in case you don't want to watch a video about that subject. But basically, season 2's just started, so I'm late to the party. I've just finished season 1 and I watched it over 2 days, and the whole time I was absolutely screaming at the TV. I should also point out that this is an opinion video, and my opinion in this case is right. So you might be watching this and you might be thinking she's a bitch or she's a cunt or she doesn't get it, right? You can think that all you want. It doesn't really matter to me, to be honest. But basically, there's 2 news hosts, and the male is sacked at the start of the show and he's accused of being a sexual predator. So he's trying to phone the female host and she's like putting the phone in the drawer and she's like, oh, I don't want to speak to him and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, why does she not pick up the phone and hear his side of the story? Like, nobody's hearing his side of the story. As the show goes on, you realise what he's like. Like, he's married, he's constantly having affairs, he's constantly chatting up all the younger women in work, and he's a bit of a sleazebag, right? But even so, she goes through the first couple of episodes and she's talking about how they're best friends and all that. So you would think that she would just pick up the phone and speak to him. So anyway, somebody has accused him of, like, abusing her in work, basically, or taking advantage of her, right? So the character, who's Reese Witherspoon's character, is interviewing this victim, right? And she's saying, what actually happened? Can you walk us through what happened and stuff like that? And she's saying that he was her boss, obviously, right? So when he was making advances on her, she didn't want to say no. Then they were going into the office and she was like doing sexual stuff to him in the office, and she never said no at any point. She didn't know how to say no because she was scared that she'd lose her job or whatever. And I was like, that is one thing that really gets to me. Actually, before we even get into this story, I should just point out that as I'm saying this, right, and as I'm giving you my opinions, I am literally talking about women who live in the Western society, right, the UK, America. I'm talking about people who are of age to have sex in that country. So in the UK it's 16. You can get married, you can have a baby, right? You can do all that when you're 16. I don't know if all the different states in America are different. I don't know about like France and Spain and all the rest of it. But once you're legal to consent to having sex and you can have a baby, you can get married and all the rest of it, then you're classed as a woman, right? Whether or not that's really, really young in other countries, I don't know. I'm not talking about countries where women are told that if they don't do what their husbands tell them, or if they don't do what the person they've been married off to tells them, that they'll be buried in the sand up to their neck, right? I'm not talking about these countries because I have got no experience living there and I can't speak for these women. But I'm talking about women who live in the UK, America, Europe and stuff like that, right? Before anybody even says. And also before anybody says, somebody will probably bring into like the way somebody's dressed, right? And they'll say, oh, what if like a girl's at a frat party and she's wearing this or she's wearing that? To me, it doesn't matter what a woman is wearing. If a woman is wearing one of the micro bikinis that just covers your nipples and like the front bit of you, that should be fine. You should be able to wear whatever you want without question. Again, in these countries, right? I'm not talking about countries where they need to cover up everything. I just thought I'd get that out of the way before I carry on, because people will be in the comments like, right? So this woman is old enough to work. She's an actual woman, right? And her boss is trying to go with her and she doesn't know how to tell him no. Now, I've worked in many places where you're not allowed to go out with anybody that you work with, be it a manager or just anybody that you work with at all. And that's obviously because it causes problems. Like, I used to go out with somebody in a nightclub, and then when we split up, it was just problems. We didn't want to work together and all that. And that's why they have these rules in place. In the casino, I don't think you were meant to see anybody, but everybody in that casino was going with everything, honestly. Like, anytime you spoke to somebody, they were going with another person that they worked with. So these problems happen, right? And these rules are put in place for a reason. In Grey's Anatomy, they sacked the guy who plays Derek because he was apparently like sleeping with all the interns and stuff. And I was devastated when he died. But at the same time, they put these rules in place for a reason, right? So anyway, in this show, this woman comes on and she's getting interviewed and she says he was her boss and she didn't know how to say no, apparently, right? So I was like, no, I'm sorry. If a man or a woman who's your boss comes to you and they make advances on you like that and you don't want to, you just tell them no. That's how, see how I said that there? Tell them no. See how that came out my mouth? That's how easy it is, right? You're probably sitting there thinking, oh, you can't speak like that. You can't say that. You've never been in that situation. You would be wrong. You would be very wrong, right? I have been in that situation many times. I've had many jobs. I'm not talking about just about bosses either. I'm talking about other people that I've worked with, and not only men either. If I do not want to go with somebody, kiss somebody or do anything, they're getting told no. That's how easy it is, right? In this show, she was like, I used to go to his office and I done this and that. Now, I don't want to go too much into like what she was saying because I'll end up getting this video totally blocked. It's not going to be monetised anyway. But she was saying the stuff that she was doing, and she was saying, I just didn't know how to say no. And I'm shouting at the TV. And I'm like, you're literally sitting there saying, I didn't know how to say no. So why didn't you just say no? Why did you continue to go to his office? Why? Right? Something that really gets to me is women who are like, I'm strong, I'm independent, I want to be respected in the workplace and all that. Okay, women should have the same pay, the same respect and all that men get. But then when it comes to something like this and it's like, oh, my boss tried to go with me and I didn't want to say no. Stand up for yourself. Stand up, say no. Literally just say no. That's all you have to do, right? See if you even say no once and then he's like, oh, come on. Just be like, no. And leave. Take yourself out of the situation, right? Then you could say, oh, maybe she was scared to say no in case she gets sacked. You really are going to put your job over that. Do you know what I mean? Like, go to HR, go to somebody. I mean, in this show, people go to the manager and then they end up like promoting them to get them to be quiet. And things like that happen all the time. But the problem was that she actually didn't even say no. So later on, he's seeing this other woman that he works with, right? And I think that she likes him. But later on, she mentions that she went with him to try and get a promotion. And it's like, if you want to go with somebody to get a promotion and you think that's going to work, then, you know, you're not being abused or anything, that's your decision. So he ends up going with this younger girl again. They go to the room, they're kissing and stuff, and at no point does she say no, right? She's maybe standing a bit like, oh, I'm not sure. And he's probably standing there thinking, oh, she's not sure because I'm her boss or whatever, right? Maybe it's because he's like 3 times her age. But at no point does she say, I don't want to do this, or put up any sort of fight, or push him away, or anything, right? So then he's now getting accused of being a predator, like abusing her basically. And the whole time, I was just getting angrier. Because men are not mind readers, right? If you don't turn around and tell them straight no, or if you don't push them away and say, look, I don't want to do this, then that's it. She could have said, I don't want to do this because you're my boss. I don't want to do this because you're old. I don't want to do this because I'm seeing somebody. Or, I just don't want to do it. You don't need a reason. You don't need an excuse. Just say no, and that's it, right? Then, if anything happens after that, then, okay, he's abused you or whatever. But it just annoys me. It just annoys me so much. The reason it annoys me so much is because it's just a TV show. But women do things like this in real life all the time. And I'm sitting going, do you know what? You're nothing but a fucking weak ass bitch. Do you know what I mean? How hard is it to turn around and say no, regardless of whether it's your boss or not? Obviously, there's going to be times in this country, in America and stuff, where you're old enough to consent, but you go with somebody who is in a position of power, and it's like, right, okay, that could be seen as abuse. For example, if you're in high school and you go with a teacher, or if you're in college and you go with a tutor. But even then, like, I've seen people in college and they're like 20, 25, and they go with a lecturer who's not even their lecturer, and then the lecturer ends up getting sacked. And it's like, well, they weren't even teaching them. It's a completely different subject. They ended up meeting them and they liked him. And she's a 22-year-old woman. Do you know what I mean? She's allowed to make up her own mind. And I know that they put these rules in place for a reason. So taking that out of the equation, right, taking out high schools, colleges and unis and stuff like that, when you're out in the workplace and they've got a rule that says you're not allowed to go with anybody that you work with, be it any colleagues, be it a boss or anything, and then you go with your boss and it's against the rules, both of them should be suspended. Both of them. And I don't think it's fair that it was like, oh, he's a sexual predator, when nobody turned around and told him no. He went to the lassie's door and he was like, oh, I need a favour. Like, we went together and then you went and reported me and you ended up getting a promotion, so now you owe me a favour. He genuinely didn't even have a clue, right, that she felt as if she'd forced herself on him. Then she was getting interviewed off Reese Witherspoon again in the house, like she was talking to her, and she was saying, oh, I think about it every day and I'm scared for life and I regret it every day, and I'm sitting like that. Is she for real? Is she for real? Right? The guy didn't force himself on her. She's crazy. Like years ago, I don't know if you remember on Hollyoaks, but there was a girl who was going with this guy. I'm not very good at remembering names, right? But he basically worked in a club, or he owned a club or something. And he was trying to go with her for ages. And she was like, oh, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. So then one night they went upstairs in the club and he was kissing on stuff. And she was like, oh, I don't know. Literally, it was like, oh, I don't know if we should. And he carried on kissing her, right? And then they ended up having sex. And then she went to the police and says that she was raped. And the guy was like, what the hell, right? Now, in that case, she did momentarily say, I don't know if we should do this. That was that, I don't know. And he didn't even realise that he'd done anything wrong. And he ended up going to jail in Hollyoaks. And I was like, no. See if I was a judge, right? And the lassie's sitting there and she's greeting and she's like, he abused me. Oh, I've regretted it every day since, right? And I turn around and I say, well, did you indicate that you didn't want to go with him? No. Did you say no? No. Did you continue to go to his office and do stuff to him in his office every other day? Aye. Get the fuck out my court. Get out my court. Do not waste my time. Do not accuse somebody of doing something when you haven't even told them no. They don't even know they're doing anything wrong. They're not psychic mediums. Do you know what I mean? And then people are like, oh, men do this, men do that, men are evil. And it's like, no. Women are evil because they do these things that they regret, and then they fabricate these stories in their head, and then they waste the guy's life when the guy doesn't even know he's done anything wrong. It absolutely drives me insane. Like, women generally, right, are evil. Because how many times, personally, I know women who have said, I want to have babies, right? We're getting a bit off track here, but I'm just talking about women and their lies. So they'll say, oh, I want a baby, and the guy will be like, no, I don't want kids, right, okay. And people have personally came to me that I know, and they've said, I came off my pill, or I didn't take my pill, or like whatever, and they got pregnant deliberately. Meanwhile, that guy's now stuck with this vein that he didn't want, and if he doesn't want to see that vein, or if he only wants to see it once a week or whatever, he's branded as the dick, when she's the one who's went and got pregnant deliberately. You should be jailed. You should literally be jailed. See if somebody can prove that you've came off your pill and you've trapped that guy into becoming a dad, jail. You should get your vein took off you and you should get 10 years in jail. If you accuse a man of rape and it turns out that you've not raped him, jail. Do you remember that lassie who accused that guy of rape in like college, and he was in jail for years? I think he'd been in jail for like 5 years at this point, and she felt bad and she came forward, and people were like, oh, she's so brave for coming forward and admitting that she lied. Jail. No, not even jail. Do you know what? The death penalty. She should have got the death penalty for lying. She wrecked that guy's full life with her stupid lies, and then she's the brave one for coming forward. Absolutely not, right? And also, these things happen, like role reversed, right? Say it's a young intern, a young guy, and then he goes with the woman boss. And when this happens, it's always like, oh, good for you, you get to go with a MILF and all that. And this is always the way it is. It's like, if a guy goes with an older woman, they never see it as abuse, but when it's a girl, it's seen as abuse. It really drives me crazy. Like, it really does. And I realise that I sound as if I'm being heartless here, but I genuinely don't care. Like, all you have to do is say no. Like, a couple of months ago, I read this thing, and it was a lassie who'd went to a party at Jake Paul's house. I only seen it once or twice. I didn't totally look into the details, right? But basically, she says that she went to a party in Jake Paul's, and he was like trying to go there and try to do stuff with her. And she was like, no. And she says he basically shoved it in her mouth, right? And she couldn't do anything. And I was like, you couldn't do anything? You couldn't do anything at all? What are teeth for? What are nails for? Do you know what I mean? Pick up something next to the bed, pull the scissors out his bloody hang and stab him with them. Do something. Do anything. And people will go, oh, but sometimes you just freeze. That's not an excuse. That is not an excuse to me. Just freezing. Either you want to do it or you don't. Make it clear. Just say no. Just say stop. Just say no. Right? But when I was watching the morning show, and by the way, it was really good. Right? I loved it. The acting was great. The characters were great and everything. But the storyline is obviously supposed to annoy you. That's why they do it like that. And the whole time you're thinking, like, what's the deal? Who are they trying to get rid of? Who knows what? But I feel like I was supposed to be watching it. Well, I was quite confused, right? If you've seen it, please let me know in the comments. Was I supposed to be watching that and thinking, that's a shame for the women? That's a sin. He's a predator, right? Or was I supposed to be getting worked up the way I was? Because I was watching it with my friend and they were agreeing with what I was saying. But the thing that got me wasn't even the show. It was the fact that people do these things in real life. Do you know what I mean? And they'll say, oh, I just froze. No excuse. I'm your judge, get out. And then I feel even less sorry for the people who keep going back. They go back to the office, they go back to the house, they stay late after work or whatever. And it's like, the guy obviously thinks that you're into it, do you know what I mean? So if anybody should be going to jail for this, it's you. For going and then saying that he's abused you when you told him that you were into it, or you basically made out as if you were and you didn't put up any sort of fight, you didn't put up any sort of resistance. Anyway, I've been ranting on this for like 25 minutes. But I know that a lot of people out there are going to be disagreeing with me. It doesn't bother me. Disagree all you want. Do you know what I mean? On you go. But I just think that women want equality. And then they do stuff like this. And it drives me crazy. Women want equality. And they deliberately come off their pill and get pregnant to trap a man. Then when the man leaves, all the lassie's pals and family are like, oh, he's a dick. He's a dick. It's like, no, the guy didn't want kids and you've trapped him. Happens all the time. Women will trap men. They'll force them, or they'll trick them into getting married or whatever, trick them into having families. And then when they don't get their own way, and then it's like, oh, you can't see the way, and they stop them from seeing them. Jail, right? Jail time. If you have got a child with a guy and that guy is trying to like see the way or whatever, and then for whatever reason you say, no, you can't see him, you should be jailed for that. Do you know what I mean? Plain and simple. It's the same as if a guy's stopping a woman from seeing the child. Now it's different if they're holding them back because they've been in an abusive relationship, they're an alcoholic or something like that, right? Okay, there's times like that when you shouldn't let your child see the dad. But if it's something just totally stupid, if it's just because you've decided because you want to hurt him, you should be jailed. You should have your wean took off you and you should never get to see your wean again. I know that that's not what this video was originally about, but I'm just talking about women trying to take control of men's lives and they think that they can get away with it because they're a woman. I know that this hasn't really been about the morning show, but it was really just talking about the victims. And it just annoys me that women want equality and all that, and then some of them come forward and they just tell lies, they try and trap men, and they do all this. And then when a man comes forward and says that he was abused, or if he was like a victim of domestic abuse, and people basically just laugh at him, because it's like, how can a woman do that to a man? Easily, because women are vile. They're nasty, they're evil, right? Not all of them, but the vast majority. And I know that a lot of people will be like, oh no, men do this and men do that. And it's like, any time a man's got a problem, he's basically laughed at because he's supposed to stick up for himself. And I'm sick of people just being like this all the time, like making men out to be total evil villains all the time. And that's just not the case. Okay, a lot of them are dicks, right? But let's face it, a lot of women are dicks as well. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you think of this. Let me know if you've seen the morning show. Let me know what you thought of the storyline. Let me know, was I supposed to feel sorry for the women? Because I didn't. I'm probably going to get millions of negative comments in this video, but do you know what? That's fine. Doesn't bother me. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're new here, consider subscribing. If you don't agree with what I've said and you want to unsubscribe because you think that women have got the right to lie about men and trap them and all the rest of it, then unsubscribe. That's also fine. Thanks for watching. Bye.